This video is dedicated to Christian Roberts. Christian, thank you. Kykar wins Fury versus Phenax, God of Deception. Bunch of lands, unlike the last game. Do we risk that one? I think we do, and just keep our fingers crossed. We're on the draw, so hopefully it's likely that we'll get into some non-creature spells. They're just going for a tap land on turn 1. We will follow suit with that ourselves and get into Whirlwind of Thought, so we're already getting into some good cards. Go for Kykar first, and then we'll get down the Whirlwind. And they're getting some ramp themselves in the Dimir Signet, so we will just go for the Talisman of Progress. We can get down our commander on turn 3. Okay, Teferi's Protection now. Let's go. We'll just go for the island and in for our commander. They haven't played anything else yet, so they might be holding up some kind of removal spell. We'll just risk it. Okay, not a removal spell. I thought it was counter magic, but instead it is fact or fiction. You can have the very expensive Rise of the Dark Realms and a Read the Bones, or you can have 3 lands. Rise of the Dark Realms is not going to be particularly good for them against us. They actually took quite a while to decide there, so I think that was a pretty good divide by us. They went for the lands. Then they played an island there into their commander, making the mistake of playing a land that we didn't know about. So we still know of 3 of the cards that are in their hand. They've got a full grip of 7. We get into Remand, which actually changes things. Are we going to risk our opponent having removal? Yeah, I think we should hold on to Remand for now. Then we can get down Whirlwind of Thought and maybe hold up Remand as well next turn, assuming that we don't use it. Let's get down the Reliquary Tower and we'll swing in with our commander. Yeah, I think I'll be annoyed at myself if I go for Whirlwind of Thought and then we lose Kykar when we had counter magic in hand. I think I'm just going to hold on to Remand. We could always Sphinx's Revelation for only 2 cards. Now it is Nightscape Familiar, you can have that. And then Grind Clock, I dare say, is part of a combo. Mill X, where X is the charge counters on it. I don't know of a combo with that. There must be a means of infinite taps and untaps to put the charge counters on it. Anyway, they put their first charge counter on there, so we'll start getting milled next turn. And then I'm not going to risk Sphinx's Revelation because they've still got black mana held up. It might be that they've got a removal spell to point at Kykar, so I'm just going to play it very, very safely. Let's go in for a land and we'll go Whirlwind of Thought, and then we can hold up the Remand and hope that we can have Kykar survive with that. It will force them to play the removal spell twice at least, assuming that they have it. We also, thanks to the Spirit, now have Teferi's Protection. Oh no, we don't, because I've tapped the mana wrong. Yeah, should have thought about that beforehand. Oh well. Let's swing in at our opponent, keep our fingers crossed that we don't have any removal spells on our opponent's side of the field. Milling us for 1 with the Nightscape Familiar. Get rid of a Lightning Greaves for us, that's pretty good. Then it's a Wall of Frost that doesn't have reach, so I'm not particularly bothered about that. Although it is a really good mill effect with Phenax, that'll mill us for 7. And then Sewer Nemesis. What is that? Power and toughness equal to the number of cards in the chosen player's graveyard. That will start to get really big as the game goes on, so we need to try and wrap this up as quickly as we can. And they play out one of the lands, so they've still got a swamp that we know about, and 2 mystery cards. And we managed to dodge our way through the removal that I'm sure our opponent doesn't have in hand. Didn't tap right for holding up Teferi's Protection. Let's go for the Chromatic Lantern. And then we mill a card to the Sewer Nemesis to make that even bigger. Draw into Jeskai Ascendancy, which we can't cast at the moment unless we just want to go all in. We can go sacrifice 2 spirits and white mana there. Yeah, we can go for Jeskai Ascendancy. Would we rather have Narset? Yeah, let's go for Jeskai Ascendancy here. And that mills us 1, draws us another card. Near enough all of our cards are going to cantrip with the Whirlwind of Thought. Get into Mystic Confluence, that's a good one. So we're set up quite nicely now. I think it's just a case of us outracing our opponent at this point. Swinging for 4 points of damage. Alright, Rings of Bright Hearth. That's good. They don't have to pay for this, do they? No, it's just a tap ability, so as long as they've got mana held up, they can double up pretty much anything. I don't imagine they'll pay for the Nightscape Familiar. Paying for these two, though, is only 4 mana, and it doubles up the amount of mill that you get out of them. So down to 80 cards in the library. We've still got time yet. This time, milling with Wall of Frost will get us for 7. Deciding not to copy that, surprisingly. Now the Sewer Nemesis has jumped up to an 11/11. They're milling us with Grind Clock as well, that'll get us for 2. And then going for the Sewer Nemesis finally, which makes sense. They might as well get as many cards into our graveyard as possible before going for the Sewer Nemesis, and this time copying the Sewer Nemesis and then deciding against it. No, they are going for that. So I think quantities do change on the stack. So the first one got us for 13, and then does this one get us for 26? Yeah, looks like it does. We plummet all the way down to 32. So I think we need to make use of this Mystic Confluence as best we can. And we'll need to make use of Teferi's Protection as well during our opponent's next turn. Probably in response to this thing. That will mill us out completely next turn. Get into a land. Let's certainly play that. Then let's swing in at our opponent, because we might have to sacrifice a spirit here. I'm wondering if we want to go for Narset and the Mystic Confluence. Yeah, I think it's worth us going for Mystic Confluence now, actually, just in case they have counter magic in hand. And we'll sacrifice a spirit. That'll immediately be replaced. We'll return a couple of creatures to the owner's hands and draw a card. They'll have Summoning Sickness put back on them. So even if they want to recast them next turn, we'll be afforded another turn. Forgot about Jeskai Ascendancy, actually. Probably should have done that before combat. Magic Online is bugging out like crazy for some reason. There we go. So we cast a spell, we mill a single card, draw 1 from the Whirlwind. That gets us into another land. I don't even know if we've got any lands that we can grab with that, with 29 cards in the library. But we can still add mana from that with the Chromatic Lantern anyway. Then draw and discard a card. Let's just get rid of Sphinx's Rev. We don't want to be drawing any cards really if we can help it. Well, not as many as Sphinx's Rev can afford us anyway. Alright, Boros Charm. I don't think he's going to help us particularly. We're probably just reliant on Impulse and Teferi's Protection next turn. If our opponent doesn't have the mana to get out the Sewer Nemesis, it depends on the order that they play things here. Might go for Remand on the Sewer Nemesis to give us another turn. Okay, it's Evil Twin. So are they just going for Kykar here? Yeah, we'll allow it. Yeah, it's Kykar they're going for. Then going for the Wall of Frost. So, what did the Sewer Nemesis cost, was it? Played this swamp now, haven't they? Can't remember if it was 4 or 5, but we'll allow the Wall of Frost down anyway. And there it is. The Sewer Nemesis was 4 mana, apparently. Let's go in. Yeah, we'll go in for the Impulse first and see if we can get into an actual counter spell. Okay, Skull Clamp isn't terrible, but it's going to be switched off by the Jeskai Ascendancy, so I don't think we're going to be relying on that. Okay, draw into Opt. Let's get rid of the Skull Clamp if we're not going to be using it. Then we look at the top 4 cards, put 1 into our hand and the rest on the bottom. Okay, Swan Song doesn't get rid of creatures, unfortunately. So we'll go for a Preordain. I'm just going to try and rely on Jeskai Ascendancy to buff our creatures as high as we can. So we'll put the Preordain into hand. And then let's just remand on this. We want as many spirits as we can lay our hands on. I don't know why the client's doing this. It really doesn't like Jeskai Ascendancy for some reason. Yeah, I haven't seen it do this with any other card, but yeah, seems to be managing now. Okay, get into Coastal Piracy, which is even more big card draw. Yeah, I think our plan is to just ride Jeskai Ascendancy to victory. Okay, Enlightened Shooter, put a stop on the upkeep for that. I don't think we need Enlightened Shooter for anything, but it's a cheap spell to cast at least. And then we'll draw from the Remand as well. Down to 21 cards in hand, and there's a Generous Gift. Might use Generous Gift on the Kykar actually, then we can push even more damage through. Okay, going for a Grind Clock. That will spell the end of their turn, I would think. Oh, and going for the Nightscape Familiar as well. They do need Summoning Sickness off of their creatures with the Phenax ability because it does have a tap arrow in the ability itself. So if we're using Jeskai Ascendancy, I don't think this is a May ability. Yeah, we have to draw a card, so we're going to have to be careful with what we go for here. But I think we should be able to take them out this turn. Okay, so we get into a land, which we can tap for mana thanks to Chromatic Lantern. Let's start things off with Enlightened Shooter, just for the sake of curiosity. We'll put the draw effects on the stack first. We've only got 17 cards left, but I think we'll be able to do it. Alright, get into Austere Command. And a loot from the Jeskai Ascendancy is another land. Don't think we'll be making use of Blasphemous Act when that big sewer nemesis is coming down. So we'll get rid of that. And is there anything left to grab with the Enlightened Shooter? Maybe a little Mana Rock or something? Divine Visitation is the only thing. Might actually be able to make use of Divine Visitation if we don't beat our opponent this turn. Let's go for the Preordain and draw into that. Then do we want to loot with Jeskai Ascendancy? I don't think that's a wise idea, so we'll say no, because we're only at 14 cards and we're going to force ourselves to draw with the Preordain. A couple of lands can go on the bottom. We'll try and get something useful into another land. Let's opt. Say no to the looting from the Jeskai Ascendancy again. And then it is Scry and 1 from opt. Yeah, another land on top. Okay, and we've got another counterspell now at least. Divine Visitation can we make use of? That'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, we'll just sack the spirits and go for white mana with these. They do have Summoning Sickness, so not going to make use of them this turn. So let's play the Divine Visitation and go for these triggers again. Because it might be that we have to save ourselves with Teferi's Protection through our opponent's next turn, and then get them with the angels that we make this turn. I don't know. In fact, yeah, the spirit should be enough to go wide on our opponent, so I don't think we need Divine Visitation on second thoughts, but we'll certainly get the Generous Gift out of the way, or get Kykar out of the way with Generous Gift. So like I said, point the Generous Gift at their Kykar and turn everything sideways, and that should be the game, I think. Making great use of Jeskai Ascendancy and its +1 ability. Yeah, without Teferi's Protection, I dare say our opponent would have had us next turn. So there we go, let's turn everything sideways in at our opponent. And there we go, good game to our opponent. Yeah, very nearly had us there, only 9 cards left in the library. My thought was that we might be able to make use of Divine Visitation if we survive through the next turn. But yeah, they only needed to really tap a couple of creatures to mill us out there, thanks to all the drawing of cards that we had to do. So yeah, I think we had to win on that turn or we weren't going to win at all, because they can always mill us in response to the Teferi's Protection itself, and the only means of countering an activated ability in this deck I think is Disallow, which was long gone, although we could have got it with the mission briefing if we decided to go for that line of play. Anyway, good game to my opponent, like I said. Hopefully you all enjoyed us nearly getting milled out by Phenax, God of Deception. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.